and welcome to another episode of Showmakers. Today we have our first Irish guest on the show, which I'm delighted about, Christian Tierney, who you may have seen in the background of one of the biggest combat sports events in history between Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather. He also has his own YouTube channel where he interviews and records some huge names in the music industry. Thanks for being on the show today, Christian.
No problem. Thanks a lot for having me on. Really happy to be on.
So, we start the Showmakers podcast nearly every time asking to give us just a short background of how you started in this creative industry. Like, how did you see your path into it? How did you get that vision? Like, what was your thinking at the time? I know you started with your YouTube channel originally, and you've interviewed Macklemore on that YouTube channel before he was a huge deal, and various other artists. So, yeah, just tell us a bit of a background.
Yeah, I never really, when I first picked up a camera, thought that it would be like a job. I've always been really creative and I was really into art in any form since I've been really young. I was always into drawing and painting and stuff when I was a kid. And then just like anything else, I started making videos for fun with my friends. I had a mobile phone when I was about 11 or 12 that had a video editing app on it. And I just like made short films with my friends. And then I used to skate as well. And once I started skating, I noticed that all the older kids would make videos of each other showing off their new tricks and stuff to post online. So naturally, I wanted to do what all the kids that I looked up to were doing. And my dad one day had a lend of a camcorder from work, and he came down to the skate park and shot some clips of me. And that was I edited it then, and that was my first experience ever editing properly. And then I loved it and decided to get my own camera. And then I just used to make skate videos. And then over a couple of years, I kind of learned more and more about editing and kind of started getting more and more into video rather than skating itself. And just out of the blue, one time when I was 14, a rapper from Dublin saw one of my skate videos on YouTube and sent me a Facebook message, and had no idea I was 15 or 14 at the time, and asked me to make a music video. And I've always been absolutely obsessed with music as well. I've played guitar since I was quite young, and my family's quite musical. So this was an opportunity at 14 years old to get paid to put my two passions together. So I absolutely dived on it and showed up. And he was like, had no idea I was going to be 14, and he was a bit shocked when I showed up after school with my camera in town. But I loved it and just decided to keep on going from there. And then I thought that a good way to be shooting all the time would be to start filming local artists in Dublin for my YouTube channel. And that's when I started that about a year later when I was 15. And I just used to email the managers of like every act coming into Ireland on tour, and also all the Irish acts that I thought were really good. And I thought that it would be a good kind of ethos where I'd have like half international acts and then half Irish acts, so that when international acts fans come onto my channel, they might see an up and coming Irish act, and that was how I'd try and help them get some attention. So that was kind of the main thing. And then I kept on doing that for a few years, and because my camera took video and photos, I just started taking photos as well. And I'd usually shoot the live sessions for my YouTube channel before the show in the venue, and usually they'd be like, do you want to stay on and watch the show? So I'd stay on and I'd take photos of the show, and that's how I got into live music photography as well. So that's kind of a background of how I got into it. Yeah,
that's insane, especially at 15. And so you literally just email the management of them to get in.
Yeah, I used to go through on the MCD website. There's a listing of every gig that's happening in Dublin. Right. Like every kind of 3 or 4 months, I'd go on and refresh, and then I'd go into every single one of them. I'd listen to the music to see, because I didn't know everybody that was coming to Dublin, so I'd listen to it and see if I thought it would be good. And then I'd Google, say it was James Bay, for example, Google James Bay management email and try and find it. If it wasn't there, usually it's in like the Facebook about section, and like I had like a few places that I knew to look to try and find emails, and I just used to like send off like 20 emails at a time to each manager being like, hey, this is what I do, this is what I'm trying to do. At the time there wasn't really anyone else in Ireland doing it as well, so that kind of helped as well. But like I got no replies at all in the beginning, like 0 replies, and eventually I got one. And then once I had that one, I used that to help me get more, and then it kind of snowballed and snowballed. But yeah, that's how I did it. Yeah,
that's what I was going to ask you next. Is like I can only imagine starting off something like that you're just going to get stonewalled for like at the start when you have nothing like to show them originally.
Yeah.
Who was like the first person you worked with that kind of gave you that?
Well, when I was 15, I used to be really into the channel SBTV, which is a music channel in the UK, and they kind of focus on grime rappers. And
Okay.
Jamal Edwards runs that, and that had like 100 million views at the time. It was huge, and there was a
Crazy sidebar, but I've met Jamal Edwards.
Yeah, he's a great guy, really, really cool guy.
Yeah, I met him at an event here. Just remembering that.
I used to. They made like a TV show on Channel 4 about like how Jamal Edwards runs SBTV, and I used to watch that like religiously, and he was like my idol, and like I'd never met somebody like famous or like who I idolized before, and he tweeted his email address and was like, I'm really interested in meeting new people or whatever. So I like spent an hour crafting this email telling him how much I loved the channel or whatever, and showed him what I did. And like he came back almost instantly and was like, do you want to come over to London for a day and film with me? And it was like a huge opportunity for me. And I went over, and when I came back to Ireland, because at the time I was working with kind of hip hop artists as well, that kind of got me a lot of respect. And then that helped me to get more. But then as well, I'd heard a Macklemore song a couple of years before. I think it was actually in a skate video, and I thought they were great, and I just started listening to them. But they were just this underground hip hop duo from Seattle at the time, and I saw that they were coming over to Dublin. They're doing like an in-store show in Tower Records for like 40 people, and then playing the Academy, and they were like nobodies. Nobody really in Ireland knew who they were. And their management came back. I didn't tell them my age. Their management came back. This is at the very beginning, when I was sending out the first emails, and they came back and said that I could do it. And I went and I shot with them for the whole day, and then that helped. Like I think it was about 2 or 3 weeks before Thrift Shop came out. Mm-hmm. So like they blew up almost instantly after I shot with them. There was no correlation there, but they got really, really big, and that kind of got me a bit of attention then as well. So I kind of got a bit of a reputation for spotting artists early, and that kind of, once I had Macklemore and a couple of others, then it got a lot easier.
It's insane. Like the foresight there was pretty insane. Like I remember that gig. I was meant to go, and I had to sell the ticket, and I remember like complaining about it to someone. I was in UL at the time doing masters. Like, who the hell is this? I showed them one song. I think it was "Life Is Cinema," which is like one of my favorite songs by Macklemore.
Yeah. And
then Thrift Shop came out, and everyone was playing it. I was like, oh Jesus! Like I wasn't expecting them to become huge.
Yeah, it was crazy.
And you've done, like, the James Bay one is nearly more impressive. Like where's James Bay from?
He's from Hitchin, just outside London.
Ah, right. Okay. Yeah, like that Let It Go song was huge, and you did the first ever recording. That's what it says on your website. Anyways.
Yeah.
Like the first ever live recording, or just first ever recording?
First ever recording. He just finished the song. It was that was 2 years later after the Macklemore thing. When I was 17, he was coming over to play the Academy 2, which is like, if you've been to the Academy 2, it's absolutely tiny. Mm-hmm. So I think he'd just been signed, and he hadn't got much out. He had like an acoustic EP out online. And so I emailed his management, and he was coming over and said he'd love to. He watched my. I sent on my show reel at the time, and he watched it and had just finished the song "Let It Go" and wanted to get an acoustic video made for it. So he said, "Oh yeah, I saw your show reel. Would love for you to do it." And I came down, and he played the song, and I thought it was absolutely incredible. But like, it was literally one take as well. Usually with artists, they'll do a few takes to make sure they're super happy with it. This was just one single take done in 10 minutes, and put it up online. I think there was like 45, 50 people at the show. I think like everyone sat on the floor because there were so few people there. It was crazy. And then the song went up, and the video has like, I think it's like nearly 6.5 million views or something now, something silly. Yeah, it's mad. And I think like the amount of awards that it won, and I think he played it with Justin Bieber at the Brits or something as well. And like it's just, I had no idea. Like I knew it was a great song, but as well, you can never predict those things. But the song just went on to be absolutely massive.
So you talked about this a bit, but where and when did you kind of, first of all, do you kind of identify more as a photographer right now than a YouTuber or video creator?
I don't really know. People have been asking me that recently, but I'm kind of doing an equal amount of everything at the moment. My YouTube channel has kind of taken a bit of a backseat because record labels changed their policies about live sessions. So it's a lot more difficult to get permissions and rights to do live sessions with big artists now. Just because of the way the music industry has gone. And that's not just my channel, that's every channel that does live sessions. So that's been made a lot more difficult, and it's a lot harder to monetize. So I've been doing more like kind of commissioned jobs as well for video. Like a lot of like bigger Irish acts have been paying me to come and shoot videos for them personally, and then the photography stuff as well, and then obviously the McGregor stuff. So I'm kind of doing an equal amount of video and photo at the moment. So I just say like photographer and videographer.
Mm-hmm. And can you expand a little more on why you kind of got more into photography? Or like why? Because you said after your recording session, after your filming sessions, you would go and see the shows and shoot photos. When did that start to become more of a professional type gig?
I think, let me think. I used to ask for photo passes for shows when I was younger as well, because I knew that it would get me into shows for free, and I just wanted to be shooting as much as I could. But I never got paid for it, unless you're being hired by the artist or the label, or like by a magazine. You're not really going to get paid for gig shots. So I kind of just did it as like a hobby, something I enjoyed to do alongside my video work for a few years. And then I suppose like maybe a couple of years ago, when I was about 18, I started taking it a little bit more seriously, and like my photography had gotten to a pretty good level, and the bands I'd been shooting and asking for photo passes for, I'd send them on the photos with the video, with the sessions afterwards, and then they liked the photographs and started putting them on their Instagrams and stuff like that. And then that's when I started kind of getting hired for it professionally as well. And then I started getting hired for festivals, and that kind of took over a lot. But I think I'm enjoying photography more than video at the moment as well, which is kind of surprising because I was so obsessed with video for a long time. But I'm really after getting into music photography and just photography in general. So it's great to have both of those things, where if I'm getting bored of doing too much photography, I can just do a bit of video, and then if I'm getting bored of doing video, I can do more photography. So I don't really identify as one or the other, but I enjoy both of them.
Your photos from, like, say, from the Longitude event there in Dublin, which I was at, like some of the photos from that are insanely good. Like,
thank you.
But like, so did you get hired by Longitude to be there? Or was that like another kind of, you're just there to take photos type event? Like, how does that work?
That was, I was hired by the festival. So I'd been shooting like gigs for the last year or so before the first Longitude I shot. The first ones that kind of got me a lot of attention were from another James Bay show I shot in the Olympia. They kind of got quite a bit of attention, and he shared them online, and I got a load of followers and stuff off that. And that's when people started taking notice of me as a photographer and not just a videographer. And I started to build, I had a bit of a relationship with MCD, who run Longitude, and just through like sessions and passes in the past, and they were looking for photographers for the festival, and they just said, do you want to come and shoot for us for the weekend? And like it's super casual shooting for them. It's like they let me in, there's like a certain amount of acts that have to be shot, but like they kind of let me shoot the acts that I want to shoot as well, and I get to share all the photos that I want to share, and then they get to use whatever photos they want to use. And it's great. Like I love shooting Longitude. It's a really good one. You get great access there, and like they always have great lineups that I'm interested in. I always get better shots of artists that I actually enjoy, and like the lineups for the last couple of years have been really relevant to my music taste. So I've loved it. Yeah.
To get a gig like that though, like is it really just a matter of building up your portfolio to the point that you're known? Or is it like, would you suggest, say, for giving advice to someone who wants to pursue that kind of job?
Yeah.
Just going in, is it hard to get like a free pass to build up your portfolio, or what would you say the career path to kind of do that?
Because it's kind of such a new thing, there isn't really like a set path to it. I kind of went a bit more unconventionally than other photographers in Ireland. A lot of music photographers in Ireland will start off shooting for like magazines or online publications where they might like volunteer and say, hey, I'll shoot for you, and then they get passes through this publication to go and shoot for shoot different gigs, and then those photos go with like reviews on those sites. And that's how a lot of photographers I know went about it. And those magazines would get the photographer like a weekend photo pass to go and shoot the festival, and then that's kind of how most people get noticed. My one was just as well like the same. Like I built up my portfolio, and from having a relationship with MCD through sessions and stuff like that, they were just aware of my stuff, and they just liked it and asked me to do it. I think as well with festivals, like they kind of look for a very specific kind of thing. Like you get a photo brief at the start of the weekend where they say this is kind of what we're looking for. And I don't know why I got asked over other photographers, but they just seem to like my work, and that's why they asked me. But there isn't really any set way. It's just keep on taking as many photos as you can, put yourself out there. I always focused on my social media a lot, like my Instagram and my Facebook and Twitter, like trying to build attention on them and try and get as much attention on my photography on there. Because like if you've the best work in the world, if nobody sees it, like nobody's going to notice it. The same with like business, like if you have the best product in the world, if nobody knows it exists, then it's pointless. So I just try and like get my work out there. And I think the attention to the videos as well kind of brought attention to my photography, because people would come onto my YouTube channel and then would like go onto my Instagram, and then my Instagram got bigger, and then people just took notice. And yeah, I don't really know. There's no set path. Just kind of get your work out there as much as you can.
Like related to that, how have you found the difference between like say Instagram and YouTube for growing an audience? So like I know my own experience, I think YouTube is the single best platform in the world for building an audience for free. Yeah. Like how do you find Instagram in comparison to that experience?
I actually find the other way around, but I think I can understand why you'd say that. But in my experience, because I was never on camera, I was always really shy. And like for a long time, like I hated hearing my own voice, and like I could never be on camera. And like the beauty of what I did is like it was only ever me. So I'd show up with just all my gear in one backpack, and I could do it super quickly because it was just me in and out in 10 minutes. And artists really like that because I'm not wasting any of their time. And like a lot of people, when artists come over, they'll have like a day of promo before the gig where they'll do like 5 sessions or like 2 sessions and 3 interviews, whatever. And I'd see like the people who were shooting sessions beforehand, like TV channels and radio stations and stuff, and like they'd set up loads and loads of lights and like tell the artist exactly how to sit and how to stand. And that kind of made artists really uncomfortable. And like at the end of the day, people are only watching my channel to hear the music. They're not watching because they think that my cinematography is beautiful. So like getting the best performance out of the artist is my number one priority. So I try and make it as comfortable as them. Get in, let them sit however they want to sit, shoot it, and then go. And but that meant that it was only ever me involved in the channel. So like I didn't really have anyone to help me with camera to shoot if I wanted to be on camera. But like I never really wanted to be on camera anyway because I was quite shy. So I think when there's less kind of, there wasn't much interaction between me and the viewers. It was just people would comment on the videos. But like, then eventually after like a few years, people started commenting like, oh, we've been subscribed to this channel for a couple of years, but like, who the hell is Christian Tierney? Whatever. So like, I think because I never had that dialogue between myself and the subscribers, it was kind of harder to build it. But then like now at Instagram, and because I'm more confident, I can be on camera more, and like I can kind of use Instagram stories to like make jokes and interact with people, and people write to me on that. And I found that Instagram is kind of the one that I've really been able to grow on. And same with Twitter. Like I absolutely love Twitter because I can type and talk to people and have conversations. But on YouTube, I just never seem to have that. And it's like it's on purpose because I never put myself in front of the camera. But that's kind of just how it went.
Yeah, I can understand. It is a big part of YouTube is kind of having the interaction with the audience. Like a large part of the reason people subscribe is because they feel like they have a connection with the host. And this is like something I put my face in it briefly and then stopped doing that because it didn't make sense. But
like at least you've got your voice and stuff, and like people feel like there's a person behind it. Whereas on my channel, like it was the only like kind of personal thing about it was when my name comes up at the start of the video and it says video by Christian Tierney, and that was really it. But what was I going to say? I've lost my thought. But yeah.
So when you're not out at a job, what is your day-to-day look like when you're
A
not?
mess. An absolute mess. I've like no structure. Like I work from home, and because like I do different kinds of jobs all the time, it's just like every day is different. If like one day I might have a McGregor video to edit, and then the next day I might have to go and shoot a session, or then do a photo shoot, and like it's just kind of whatever. I don't have a plan. Maybe that's a bad thing. Maybe I should have more of a structure, but there's no like. People have asked me that before, and I just haven't got an answer. There's no structure at all to my day.
Yeah. And how much time goes to seeking out new gigs?
Less than before, definitely, because people are like coming to me more now. Like most of my work that I do at the moment is from people coming to me. Like I don't really have to reach out to people anymore, which is nice. But like if something comes up, like the McGregor stuff, for example, like I was doing my sessions and stuff at the time and doing music videos, but that was a job that I really wanted, so I went and I chased after it again, the same way I chased after sessions when I was younger. So not as much time as previously, but if something comes up that I really want, like say an artist is coming to Dublin who I haven't shot before, who I don't have a contact with, I'll go and I'll try and get a photo pass so I can shoot the show, and then afterwards I'll try and find an email and I'll send on the photos so that the artists see them, and then hopefully that'll spark a relationship going forward. And that's happened a few times. Like recently I shot a gig for a big artist. I wasn't hired to do it at all. I wasn't getting paid to do it. I just went along and took photos, and then I sent them on to the management after, and then they ended up using them for the tour poster for that artist for like a whole US tour. So like a bit of everything. Yeah, I don't set a certain amount of time for each thing.
So you just alluded to it, but I'm going to piss off Brian by asking this question. How did you end up shooting for Conor McGregor?
Conor McGregor, I literally just found out who was running his website. I think he did a post on Facebook like a couple of years ago. When was it actually? I think it might have been after Diaz 1 or just after Diaz 2. And he like mentioned in the post who was running his website, and it was a mate of his, and I just added him on Facebook, and I didn't write to him for a while, and then one day I just felt like now was the time, and I sent him a Facebook message and say, hey, I see what you're doing with the website with the Mac Life. I think I could add a lot to what you're doing with my video skills and my photography, and sent them on links to work and said, here's what I do. I've done interviews, do video, do photos. I know like a bit about growing social media and all that kind of stuff, which was all what they were doing at the time. And he came back and said, yeah, like, do you want to come and shoot? Conor was doing a nightclub appearance in Belfast. It was like a live Q&A thing. And he said, come up to Belfast with us, make a video for that day, and we'll see how it goes. And I did that, and they really liked it. Conor really liked it, and they just asked me to keep on working with them since then. And obviously he was on kind of a break with the baby, so I didn't really do much over the next few months. Then this summer, when he started training for the Mayweather fight in like June, he messaged me again and was like, hey, we're going to be covering the whole way up to the fight if you want to come on. And then I just started going down to the gym all the time and shooting with them, and then I ended up in Vegas, and it kind of just spiraled and snowballed.
So I know you've probably heard of this sponsor before. I myself got a free audiobook from an Audible sponsorship on a Smarter Everyday video years ago, when I was spending 2 hours in traffic every day commuting to work, and those books made that experience so much more enjoyable and productive. I have kept my membership ever since, and I now listen to them when I'm working on animations or travelling. This could be your chance to start that good habit too. Audible makes it easy to consume books, and whether you're into science fiction, thrillers, educational books, or any other genre, Audible has an unbeatable selection of audiobooks. I recently thoroughly enjoyed listening to We Are Legion, We Are Bob, which is an enthralling story about a man named Bob who dies and wakes up a century later as a replicant, meaning his brain has been scanned and turned into an artificial intelligence to be sent off into the cosmos with the tools to build a space empire. If this sounds like something you might like, or you have something else in mind, you can get a free audiobook with a 30-day free trial at audible.com/showmakers. That's audible.com/showmakers. Once again, that's audible.com/showmakers.
ible.com/showmakers.
It's pretty much the dream job in terms of getting in the door. Like literally the biggest sport, like combat sports event in recent history, if not all time.
Yeah.
Was it all time?
I
Like
think it was all time. It broke
have,
all the records. It broke the gate. It broke the pay-per-view. Everything, yeah.
And like, what was that like? Where, like, did you fly over with them on, or like, I don't even know where to ask. Like, it just seems
Brian
like
just wants to know everything.
Are you asking did I fly over on a private jet?
Yeah, pretty much.
I went to Liverpool with them on a private jet. I didn't fly private over to Vegas though, unfortunately. Flew private back, which was nice. But yeah, it was absolutely insane. It was really interesting that like from the first day of training in June in Dublin in SPG, like he had his own private boxing gym where nobody else would come in. So like most of the time I spent with Conor was actually just me, him and his mates and his trainers in the room. So like it didn't feel like a big celebrity like situation. It was just like a guy in the gym training. It just felt like any athlete in the gym training, but obviously it's Conor McGregor, but like it's until you're actually out in public with him and you see the absolute mania that surrounds him, it's very hard to comprehend. Like, especially since he has a Dublin accent and talks the same way that I do, I think it's very hard to understand how, like, the person who's standing right in front of you like that is such a huge star. Mm-hmm. And then, like, I remember when we went over to Vegas, like, I stayed in an Airbnb about 15 minutes away from the Strip because the gym was quite far away. So we didn't stay in a hotel. It would have been too far to drive. So, like, we didn't end up going down to the Strip for a few days. And I remember the first day I went down and like his face was all over every single taxi and on massive billboards and like on the front of the MGM. And it was the first time since the start of the training camp that I had actually seen everything on a huge scale, you know, like it's kind of like it's the quiet at the center of the storm, you know, like when you're actually in it and you're with him and like it's hard to really believe how big it is. And it wasn't until the media events and the weigh-ins and stuff started kicking off that it was like it really kind of hit me that how big it actually was. Until then it just kind of felt like a normal job. I was filming a guy training in the gym, and then I remember like stepping out at the weigh-ins and like was up on stage with him, and like I think it was like 20,000 people at the weigh-in. It was crazy, and it's just an incredible experience. Like I don't think it's really sank in yet how like historic it was, and like very few people had like, I think like I was like one of 2 or 3 people that had the access that I did to him. Like nobody else did. And like, as you said, it was like the biggest sporting event in history. It's such a historic thing. And I feel really, really grateful to have had that opportunity. And I loved it. And I really owe a lot to Conor for allowing me to have that opportunity. But it's helped me a lot as well. Like it's helped me get more attention for my work, and like even musicians and stuff are taking notice of it, and it's helping me out like in kind of like a 360 degree way. So it's just an amazing experience. Yeah.
And I mean, I said before we started recording, I didn't want to focus on just your work with McGregor. Like I wanted to focus on your creative talents, even though I am like obsessed with McGregor myself. Pretty much when I learned how to make YouTube videos, I think the first success I had was I did an edit for the Cage Warrior highlights before he went into the UFC. Like I didn't really know you could make money on YouTube before I made that video. I was like, oh shit, you can make like decent money if you get some views. Yeah, I think that was like the first kind of kickoff that I realized that YouTube is something that you could look at as a career. But yeah, like that experience must have been pretty overwhelming, going onto stage and trying to do your job. Yeah. Like, do you have any insight on that of like
I think doing my job actually made it less overwhelming. It's like, because when I was on stage, I was taking photos and taking videos at the same time. So I had 2 cameras, one in each hand, and like I don't think I looked up from the camera for maybe 5 seconds the whole time I was up there. And because I was so focused on capturing what was happening, like I didn't even really get a chance to look around, and like it didn't really set in until afterwards. And as well, like because I've shot so many musicians and like famous people, like that doesn't faze me at all anymore. Like I don't see people as famous people and not famous people anymore. Everyone's just a person to me doing a job. And like I've been on stage, like I shot Kendrick Lamar. When I shot him, I was on stage at Longitude in front of thousands of people, and like I've been in those kind of situations a lot, so I'm well used to it. So that it wasn't really overwhelming or didn't faze me, but it's just from experience. I know that if that had been my first time doing that, if I had never been on a stage like that before and had never shot celebrities like that, it would have probably blown my mind. But I was lucky that I was used to it, and it let me to just kind of focus on my job and get the best content and best video I could.
I imagine the endorphin rush is still pretty insane of stepping in front of that many people. Like you kind of, I'm sure you look up from your camera every now and again to just peek and smile at what's going on around you.
Yeah. But like as well, like when you're standing up there, like you're hyper aware that none of those 20,000 people are looking at you. So like it's there's no like pressure or anything like that. Like you know that everyone's looking at Conor, so like it's fine. There's no like self-consciousness, but yeah, it's great.
How high pressure is it having your whole job revolves around a few moments that you have to kind of capture?
Yeah.
And an equipment failure or you trip or whatever can kind of destroy that.
Yeah.
How do you kind of cope with that? How do you make sure that things work when they need to work? All of that.
It's actually funny you ask that, because I've been asked to make wedding videos a load of times, and I always said, like I've said, like I'd never make a wedding video because the stress would be too much for me. If I missed a moment, it would kill me, and like it's too high pressure. But like now that you put it like that, I suppose it's the same. Like if I missed something at a Conor McGregor event, I'd be screwed as well. But I just never really thought of that. I haven't really had any disasters where something cut out. At the open workout this year, actually, towards the end when he was talking, somebody like ran in and bumped my microphone, and then some of the audio at the end was a little bit ruined. But like that was like kind of the only big technical failure I've ever had. But I don't really think about that. I think if you start thinking about that and start being like aware of the pressure, that kind of makes it more difficult for yourself, and like takes your focus away from actually capturing what you need to capture. So I just try not to think about that, really.
What photography camera do you use, out of curiosity?
I use a Canon 5D Mark III, and for video I use a Sony A7S II.
Well, that's a good camera. I have one about a foot away from me.
Yeah, it's lovely. It's great. Really good.
Mm-hmm. So you don't carry multiple cameras to an event, unless
I'm doing photo and video. Like for Conor, like it's very rare that I'll have to do both at the same time. For Conor's stuff, I was doing both sometimes. So I had like a dual camera strap, and I had one hanging on either side of me. But usually I just use one camera for gigs and stuff. Like I'll only ever have one camera, and I'll just change lenses if I need to. That's just out of like, because it's so expensive to buy a new camera. Like I'd love to have two. A lot of music photographers shoot with two cameras. And have like a different lens on each one, because you need to be able to switch between situations at gigs quite quickly. It just saves you having to switch lenses. But I got a lend of a camera recently, a second camera for Longitude this year actually. So that was my first time shooting with two cameras, and it made everything so much easier. So it is something that I want to do, but I just haven't made the spend on a second camera yet.
And like, how did you actually learn how to take videos and photos? Was it just a matter of going out and practicing, or did you do any courses or anything like that, or did you learn online? I
never did any courses. It was mainly just YouTube tutorials. I used to watch Film Riot, a series on YouTube, and it's like an online film school, and I learned everything off that and just shot as much as I could. I think a lot of young people as well, when they start out, like there's loads of youth film festivals in Ireland where you can enter short films, and like schools can enter short films. I think that's how a lot of people get interested in making videos. But when you're making a short film like that, you might like spend a few weeks planning it, and then you'll shoot it in a couple of days, and then you'll spend a while editing it. But it means that you're only actually shooting like once every couple of months or whatever. Whereas when I set up my YouTube channel, that was kind of an exercise, because I could shoot a session every week. So it meant I constantly had a camera in my hand. And then once the session was finished, I'd put down the video camera and pick up the photography camera, and then I was shooting the gig. So like I was constantly shooting as much as I could, and that wasn't really a conscious decision, it just kind of happened. But I think that kind of helped me improve quite quickly in the beginning, just because I was shooting so much. I think it's definitely like photography and videography is like the ultimate practice makes perfect sport. There's no amount of sitting in like a classroom that will make you a great photographer. It's just purely going out and taking photos and developing your eye. So I think it's just a combination of like online tutorials and practice.
I've said the same about like animation. For say both of our channels are mostly animated.
Yeah,
like you can spend like a year just watching After Effects tutorials, but you're not really going to learn anything until you actually start making your own content and kind of
exactly
seeing. Yeah.
One of my personal favorite photographers is Pete Souza, the former Obama. Thank you.
Yeah.
The Obama's White House staff photographer, who really he always talks about how, and one of the reasons why he was one of the best White House staff photographers is because he got such close access to the subject, who in that case was Obama and his family. Or two-pronged question. How much do you rely on that, and how much does that affect what you're able to produce, the kind of intimacy with the subject?
Yeah. I absolutely love Pete Souza as well. He's such an incredible photographer, but he's absolutely right. There's so many different like genres of photography, and each one is completely different. And like if I tried to shoot fashion, it's completely the opposite to music photography. Music photography, you show up, the lights are already set by a lighting designer. You have no idea what's going to happen on stage. You have to just capture whatever the artist does. It's kind of the same with Conor. And then like in fashion photography, you decide everything. You choose where the model stands. You tell them how to stand. You tell them how to move. You decide the lights. You decide the location. And like I'd struggle in that environment, and similarly I've seen fashion photographers trying to do music photography, and they struggle in like not having that control. But I think especially in what the kind of photography that I do, and what like Pete does, kind of where you're documenting an actual happening rather than setting up a scene, access is absolutely everything. Like when you shoot a concert, if you aren't shooting for the artist, if you're shooting for a magazine, for press, or just getting it past yourself like I did in the early days, the rule is always that you're only allowed to shoot the first 3 songs from the pit. And that means that there might be 10 photographers in the pit, you're getting the exact same photo that everyone else in the pit is getting from the same angle. And you're only allowed to shoot those first 3 songs, and usually the best part of the show isn't in the first 3 songs, so it's quite hard to make anything spectacular out of that. Whereas if you're shooting for the artist, you'll have an access all areas pass, and you're allowed on stage, you're allowed side stage, you're allowed on balconies, you can shoot the whole show. You might have backstage access, and that's like massively beneficial. And then with Conor as well, like just by having like I had almost complete access to him, and like that helped me get photos that nobody else was going to get. It's like it's kind of like making a documentary. I absolutely love documentaries for that reason, kind of documenting something historic and truthful that's happening, and like the more access you have, the better work you're going to be able to do. And I think Pete's absolutely right in that sense.
Your job almost entirely happens in places where probably 80% of people are drunk. Have you ever had any issues with drunk fans or general members of the public getting in the way of your work?
Do you know what? It's less drunk people, and it's more people like holding up their phones. I was actually shooting a gig. A good friend of mine, Dermot Kennedy, played in London on Friday, and it was in a venue called O'Meara, and it's quite small, but there's no pit at the front. Most venues will have a pit, but there's no pit in this venue, so I had to stand kind of at the side and find my own angle within the crowd. And a girl in front of me just held up her phone for the whole show, and it's in every single shot, and like there's nothing I can do about that, and that's quite annoying. The only time I was shooting there's an Irish artist called Dahi. He's fantastic, and he was playing a gig in the Opium Rooms in Dublin. And I was getting a shot from the crowd, I was doing video, and I'm in the middle of a take, and like, because that's kind of like half venue, half nightclub, and this show started at like 1 a.m, so everyone was super drunk. There was a guy like screaming in my ear, like, "Will you take a photo of me and my mates? Please, just take a photo of me and my mates," like screaming in my ear for about 30 seconds while I'm holding the camera at Dahi trying to get this shot. And just like kept on screaming. And that's the only thing. It happens all the time at like at festivals when like you're walking from stage to stage, or people think that you're there just to take photos of them and their mates, and they like stop you and they're like, "Got a photo of me and my mates." But the funniest thing is, like, usually you'll take the picture and then they'll just walk off, and they've no idea where they're going to find that picture. And like, they haven't even asked like, "Where can I see that?" And like, it's like, I will take the photo, but you're never going to see it. And they're happy enough. They just, once they get a photo taken. But that's kind of the only thing. I haven't had any big disasters with drunk people, thankfully, yet.
Have you done many festivals outside of Ireland?
I don't think I have done a festival outside of Ireland.
I'd be curious if it's the same experience with the absolute insanity. Like, my brother insisted on going to the Longitude there, and that was just full of 18-year-old kids.
Yeah,
and
basically.
I mean, wait a minute. You're younger than me, but yeah, it was just drunken madness. Like, I'd be curious to see if you'd have similar experiences outside of that.
Yeah, I think the artists kind of dictate that. Like, I shot Forbidden Fruit last year, and it was like Tame Impala were the headliner one day, and then like the next day was just like a load of rave acts. It was like Underworld, and like the difference in crowd between the 2 days, and the difference between how drunk people were and how people were acting was just absolutely insane. And it's just down to kind of the people you're shooting. And luckily, like, I'm not really that into like dance music, so I don't really shoot that many dance gigs. So I don't really come into that a lot. But that kind of music attracts a kind of culture of like drugs and alcohol and stuff. So they're a little bit more difficult to shoot. But yeah, I've been lucky.
Like, I'm just scrolling through your Instagram now. It's like there's one or two, like the one behind McGregor at the I think that was at the weigh-ins. That's a pretty iconic shot. What would you say is like your most well-known, most publicized photo?
There's one of Conor that I took in Liverpool at the start of this year, where he's sitting in the back of a Rolls Royce wearing like the Louis Vuitton shirt with the giraffe on it. That was kind of, we went to the Grand National that day, and he showed up at the Grand National in like this like outrageous outfit with like silver chrome runners and Gucci sunglasses that flip up, and this shirt, and he posted that on his Instagram, and that got like, I think, close to 1 million likes. That one did really well. So that's probably the one that most people have seen. But like, there's some music ones that I love as well. Like, some of the shots I took of Kendrick Lamar I really love. I suppose it's kind of just the ones that get shared around the most. That one of Conor like got reposted by like GQ and Complex and loads of massive publications in the US. So that's probably the one that has had the most eyes on it.
And like, for it getting published in GQ and stuff, how does that work in terms of copyright and stuff? Like, does McGregor own that, or do you get any kind of money from that?
That was they just like reposted it on like their Instagram and their online channels, and like there's very little kind of copyright regulations around online use at the moment still, which is quite annoying as a photographer. But I just make sure, like, as long as I'm getting credited, like when Complex share my stuff, they always credit me, and GQ credited me as well. So like, I get loads of followers and stuff out of that as well. So at least I'm getting something. But like, if somebody wants to use a photo like in the actual publication in like print or like on their website, then it's a different story, and you should be getting paid for that. But for Instagram, it's kind of just a repost system.
Okay. And like, say, I think it was, who used the photo for the tour? I think that was Niall Horan, wasn't it?
Yeah, Niall Horan used one of my photos from a few weeks ago, yeah.
Yeah, that's like, he's huge as well.
Yeah.
And it's great to see other Irish people as well. Like, I'm always going to have the bias towards Irish people here.
Absolutely, yeah.
And
go on.
Would, like, for using the tour poster, I presume you'd get, like, how does that work in terms of the copyright stuff?
Yeah, like I got paid and everything for that. That was just like a negotiation with his management, yeah.
Right, okay.
But he's been really cool that like his whole band is Irish, and just speaking on Irish people, like, that was I shot his gig the day I came home from Vegas, and so it was great to see one Irish guy taking over the world, to then going and shooting another guy who's Irish taking over the world. And it's great, like, Irish music, and Just Irish people in general are doing so well at the moment. It's brilliant to see.
Yeah, it's like there's a seems to be a new generation of younger Irish people here now that are a lot more go-getters, like yourself. Like what seems to me has defined your career so far has just been that hustle of like looking for the job, not just waiting for it to come to you. Like you went around emailing people just asking for the job.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
that's a good lesson for anyone who's looking to start a career in this. And like a lot of this podcast is meant to be like kind of help people if they're interested in this sort of career of online stuff, is like what do they need to do
Yeah,
to get that job. And like half of it is like that sort of hustle is just admirable. Like
100%. Like I knew when I started out, when I was emailing people, like I had absolutely nothing to lose. Like if I email 20 people and none of them reply, I'm like, I'm no worse than I was before I send the emails. Like there's no, I don't see any reason why somebody wouldn't just go out and make it happen. I think that's the difference between like the way to know whether you love what you're doing or not as well. Like if in my eyes, like if I'm really passionate about something, I'm going to do absolutely everything in my power to make it happen. And if that means going and emailing everybody, that's what I'm going to do. Whereas like if it's something I'm not interested in, then I'm not going to put in the work into it. Like I think like if you want to have like an extraordinary career and an extraordinary life where you get to do what you love every single day, like that's not an easy thing to do. And if it was, then everyone would do it. But very few people have that luxury. So like it is a difficult thing to do, and you do need to have to put a lot of work into it. But yeah, I suppose you kind of just have to understand that. But like I knew exactly what I wanted. I knew that I wanted to be shooting all the time. I knew I never wanted to work a regular job or work in an office, or I wanted to do my own thing, and I didn't want to have a boss telling me what to do. And I knew that like the only way that I'm gonna have that is if I actually go out and make sure I just take it and go and get it. And it's like it's not going to come to you. Otherwise, it will come to everybody, and everybody doesn't have that luxury. So
I feel like that's a nice place to round up the show and end it. But is there anything you'd like to include at the end? Anything you'd like to promote? Obviously, we'll include links to your Instagram and YouTube channel in the show notes. But is there anything else you'd like to talk about?
I don't think so. I'm not really on here trying to promote anything as well. Like one of the main things for me is trying to help other people as well. And like I've been lucky enough that I've been asked to do a few talks for young people and stuff to try and inspire them to follow what they want to do. Like I think like now more than ever, there's less of a stigma around doing like a creative career. And it's like with the internet, it's becoming easier than ever. And I'd push people to try and follow what they want to do. Like, especially when I was younger as well, like I was lucky that my parents always made me believe that I could do whatever I wanted to do, but not everybody has that kind of support. And like a lot of people don't believe that they can achieve what they really want to achieve. And like I saw that in school as well, where a load of my friends were doing courses that they knew they were going to hate, and they knew they had no interest in, and it was just because either their parents wanted them to do it, or they thought that what they actually wanted to do wasn't achievable or was too risky. But I just think like it's ridiculous. Like if you really want something enough and you go and you put in the work, you can absolutely make it happen for yourself. So that's, I suppose, all I wanted to say to people. But yeah, if people want to check out my work online on my Instagram or my Twitter and come and say hello, that'd be amazing. Yeah, I really appreciate you having me on.
Thank you for being on, and I'm just delighted to have a first time Irish person on the show.
I'm honoured.
It's just like it's nice to be able to talk to another Irish person.
Thank you again.